Hello, Josh. You're up next.
Hi Bart, how you doing?
How's it going?
Good. Yeah, so this hand's coming out of MGM Springfield.
Oh, yeah, Josh, you've been on the show before, right?
Yeah, I have.
MGM Springfield. I keep saying it, a place I have not been to yet. MGM Springfield, okay.
So this is a 510 and we're 23-25 effective. So under the gun opens to 30.
Yep.
Middle position flats.
So MP calls, okay.
And I'm in the cutoff with Queen of Spades, Queen of Clubs, and 3-bet it to 125.
So under the gun to 30, MP calls hero and cut off with black queens, 3 bets to 125.
Yep.
So a little bit on the small-ish side, little bit small, 4x, dead call in between.
Normally I 3x in position with the debt plus the dead call, yeah. So I go 125. A little small. I mean, maybe I'd size up if we were a little deeper.
Yeah.
Folds around to the under the gun player who flats, and the middle position player folds.
So UTG calls, MP folds, and the only thing I would say about that is that UTG is a little bit incentivized to 4-bet off the really strong portion of his hands. The thing is about this, that you always got to look at is from the hero's perspective, how big you make the 3-bet, because sometimes, like if you make it really large, UTG can stick around somehow with some sort of tricky, very strong hand, thinking like, oh, the guy who 3-bet made it so large, he doesn't need to 4-bet. But you didn't really make it that large, so I would expect a lot of strong hands, ace, king, kings, aces, to really 4-bet here quite a bit. It's not always, but that's what I would tend to expect most of the time. Looks like the pot might be 280 plus change or 290 with the blinds or something like that, right?
Yeah, and that's a key thing to kind of keep in mind as we go throughout the hand.
Okay.
With the under the gun player not putting in a 4-bet here,
Mhm.
especially with the dead caller in the middle.
Yep.
So we go to a flop, which is the 6 of spades, 4 of clubs, 6 of hearts.
So 6-4-6 rainbow.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's good flop for my hand.
Sure. Especially if you don't think the guy has aces or kings, right?
Yeah, right. So under the gun checks, and I go about half pot. I bet 150.
I just wanted to talk about your sizing here for a second. So the interesting thing about this is that if you took out most of the aces and kings from the under the guns perspective, I'm just talking about once it gets checked to the hero and he bets 150. You take out most of the aces and kings because that he didn't 4-bet pre, because the guy is in the middle. I do wonder, you were talking about like live node locking, or it's not really live node lock, it's any node locking. Node locking, of course, is taking out certain hands that might be in a certain situation because of tendencies. Although this one's probably not even a node lock. He's probably just not supposed to have aces and kings. Obviously, you talking about solver stuff, it's hard to go multi-way, but because those hands are supposed to probably always be 4-bet off, and he doesn't have that many of them. Now, if it was heads up, king might be represented here. So maybe where the node locking comes in is you're taking away the king slivers, or that 40 or 50% of king that's flatted pre, because it wouldn't be flatted because there's this guy in the middle. If you take out aces and kings, then you have a very strong hand here. And you unblock the ace highs, and you kind of want to punish the other pair. So that would seem to me, again, this is just me off the top of my head, that I would actually want to take a larger sizing here of at least 2/3. Now you went half pot of at least 2/3 as I try to build, the pot up for maximum value.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, sizing up at least 2/3, because you're going to get, like you said, a lot of his pocket pairs to continue, of course, on this flop. If he's got, really fives plus up to jacks, right? He's obviously going to be making the call on the flop here. So you'd want to build a pot.
But you decide to go 150, and what does the under the gun do?
Well, do you think if you go larger, a lot of his suited Broadways, ace high type hands are going to just fold out? Well, that should be continuing on this flop to, let's say, like a smaller half pot sizing.
I don't know. So yes, the suited Broadways, sure, right? But any ace highs that are continued here, right? If he's not calling with many offsuit aces, right? This is always interesting about ace. Like, I don't know, like ace queen off, that might not even supposed to be called. And if that's the cusp, you have 2 queens in your hand, right? So you block a lot of that. So then you're left with all the ace kings, and the ace kings are always calling, right? So then you sort of go down the line of, okay, well, to ace jack and ace 10 suited and things like that. So I don't know if I'm overly concerned with that. Plus, you have a hand that blocks a lot of the suited broadways too, right? With queen, queen. So yeah. Okay, so what does the under the gun do?
So he check raises to 450.
So he check raises to 450. So hero goes 150. Under the gun, check raises here to 450. Wow, that is very, I guess you could say it's strange. Because it's not like you bet so small that there would be like a protection type of raising range here. You know what I mean? Like if you bet like 75 and some overpairs and stuff are going to want to, raise for protection. I mean, you kind of bet in between here for half pot. So there's no draws out there. It's 6-4-6, really.
Yeah. I don't see a 6x really, should be raising here that often too.
Well, does he have any 6x?
If he has a 6-7 suited, maybe he's sticky with 5-6 suited. Maybe could have pocket fours here. But now he's gonna be folding out all of my bluffs by fast playing and raising the flop. So I don't really necessarily think that check raising those types of hands really makes that much sense.
Yeah, obviously, like if I had pocket fours or pocket sixes here and I was your opponent, if I was somehow in here, this would be the type of board that I would allow you to continue if I had respect for you as a player, right? Because it's a texture board where, you're going to continue to barrel off your big overpairs for value and then effectively value bet if you run into something. So it's kind of strange to have any type of raise size here. Although I'll go back to one of the things that, I sort of remember the hand, but I don't really look at it too in depth. But one of the things that jumps out at me whenever I get check raise on a board like this, when I'm holding like your hand, is could this guy ever have aces and kings? But funny enough, we actually talked about that last street that he shouldn't really. You know what I mean?
Especially like, we're not heads up pre-flop either. We had the cold caller in between, so it's kind of that even makes it more unlikely that he would have aces or kings in his range.
And people are also saying too, this is what sort of makes this hand, like, I don't know if the opponent really should have any 6x with the guy in the middle calling. If he opened like ace 6 suited or 7-6 suited, those should always be folds. Now, I'm not saying, obviously they might be represented with a guy in the middle, right? He's opening from under the gun. You got an MP call. Hero is 3-betting. Talking about like, you're folding off a portion of your range to the 3-bet, all of those suited connectors, if they're open, it would be at the bottom portion of the range. And then in a multi-way pot, it would just be suicide. It shouldn't be continued. But I'm not going to fold now, but it's bizarre, right? It's bizarre.
So
yeah.
I also have no history with this villain. I'm thinking now at the time, like maybe he could have just a pocket pair that he's raising for protection, scared of an overcard on the turn. So with that being said, obviously I'm not folding now. I do make the call.
I'm just trying to think of, is there any type of like backdoor types of hand? Like could it, this is really going in the weeds here. Would like ace 5 suited with a backdoor here? Would that be a hand that could be check raised to start a backdoor bluff? It would make sense. Ace 5 of hearts, ace 5 of spades, ace 5 of clubs, something like that.
If he's gonna have a bluff, that's probably about it.
That's just me off the cuff. That's what would make, it's got an overcard to some other pairs, get some backdoors.
Yeah, so maybe 7-8 suited that we said calls, sticks around and gets sticky pre.
So looks like it's 1190 here, right? To the turn?
Yeah, that's what I've got.
Okay.
Turns the 4 hearts.
Wow, so the turn double pairs the board now.
Correct.
6-4-6-4. The pot's 1190, and you guys have like 1800 left, something like that.
It's about 1750.
1750, yeah. Okay.
And under the gun goes ahead and he overbet jams for the 1750.
What? Who's this guy?
I have never played with him. I know just talking to other regs in the room, he's a guy who has money, older gentleman.
Older gentleman.
Because he didn't 4-bet pre-flop it just seems like he's got a hand like jacks, tens, nines, maybe even eights, right? That are just overplaying their hand.
I can't see that though. I can't see that, Josh.
Yeah, when I call the check raise, it's like I'm representing I have an overpair here, so you would really have to be, out to lunch to be overplaying the, a pocket pair like jacks, tens, right? It's just it's just kind of a wild spot to be in, I think, from my perspective.
So you're saying that he's a little bit of an older guy.
Yeah, he's probably mid-60s.
I don't know, man. I don't think I can fold here. I don't think I can fold because I'm just trying to think of the profile of a guy mid-60s. I'm trying to think, again, the only things that concern me here, literally the only thing, it's not pocket sixes, it's not pocket fours, it's literally like aces. It's like aces, like that's what concerns me here.
Well, yeah, I mean aces or kings, right? That just slow plays pre-flop and doesn't put in the 4-bet.
Right. And again, it's bizarre because we can go into what makes sense and what doesn't make sense because you wouldn't really want to play aces this way either if you showed up with it for the same reasons why you wouldn't really want to play like pocket fours like this, what we talked about, right?
Yeah, because you're gonna essentially you're gonna allow me to fold out weaker overpairs, right? And if he's playing it any way differently, he's probably still gonna get all the money.
Yeah.
If he's just gonna let me value bet, I'm just gonna be value betting my hand pretty much. If there's a brick on this turn, if he didn't check raise, I would have continued barreling on the turn.
And it's so weird the way that this turn card, any of the other hands that we had discussed that he really shouldn't have, but maybe he shows up with, like a six is a boat, pocket fours is quads. No, it's just so bizarre why anybody would jam here for with such a strong hand, right? For 1750. Michael G, of course, moderator extraordinaire, says, I expect to see Jack checker 10-10. I don't really agree with you there, Mike, unless the guy's clicking buttons. Once in a great while, you have a guy. But here's the thing so I would say the thing about Josh's hand is I would almost be more, I would expect to sometimes see tens or jacks here if Josh, the caller, had bet smaller on the flop and the effective stacks were shorter, meaning that he bet 100 into 300. The guy made a protection raise, thinking he's good with tens or jacks. Then on the turn, he's left with less than a pot size bet. He doesn't know what to do, so he's like, fuck it, I'm all in. You call, and he's like, oh, if you call, you got me, right? That's the scenario. Here, though, Josh bet 150 into 290. The guy's got a pot and a half size bet left. That's why I don't think that jacks and tens get represented all that much here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know, man. It's so bizarre. I think I have to call. Some people are saying snap call, but I don't think I can get away from this one here.
Yeah, and he's not really an OMC type player. He was playing a fair amount of hands, but so going to the results, I end up making the call.
Okay,
and I get shown ace here.
Oh, UTG has ace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be hard on yourself here though.
No, I'm not. I'm just in real time. I thought just like what you said. It's so bizarre for him to play it this way. I think you just have to flick in the call, and you're praying he's just overplaying jacks or tens, right? Or So my question also is what if let's say I had jacks or tens in the spot. Do you think then that it would be a fold if I had I probably what is your cusp?
Right. What's the difference between queens, jacks, or tens? Well, I mean, you can just sort of
are you only calling queens and folding at every overpair below that?
I mean, you kind of look at it from you're talking again minimum defense frequency type of thing. It might not really matter if he's never doing this. The quality of your hand of queens, jacks, and tens might not necessarily matter, but then you sort of just look at which ones are better. Maybe just in the one off chance. Because it would really suck if you had tens here and he was button clicking with jacks. You know what I'm saying? If you really want to get into the weeds, if you were to say that tens, jacks, and queens are all equal, and that doesn't matter, then you start to get into this weird thing where you have to look at the way that the board interacts with your hand, and there might be slightly better calls because of the way that you think it might block some sort of backdoor bluff. You know what I mean? It makes my head hurt to even think about it in this particular scenario, So
I was thinking about it after, and I think if I had jacks or tens, I'd probably fold, and queens, I think I call just because I think that if there are any hands that he's going to get here with, it's going to be jacks or tens that overplay.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Obviously, yeah, he can have this low played aces or kings, but
Yeah.
it's just so unlikely when he doesn't four bet pre, especially with the with the dead caller in between.
Let me ask you this question, and all of the chatters here too. So let's say that the guy in the middle is not in the hand. So it went under the gun to 30. Hero, I guess you'd take slightly smaller sizing. Let's say hero goes to 100. Okay. And the guy calls, right?
Yeah,
And then you start off with like $100 bet instead of like 150.
yeah,
And then he check raises you to like, 300 and you call.
yeah.
And then now on the turn, same run out, maybe it's not a jam for, 1750, but maybe he commits himself with like a huge overbet of like 1,000.
Yeah, it's pretty much effectively saying, yeah, we're playing for stacks.
Right. See, in that case there, I think it's much, much closer because I'm so concerned about aces or kings. You know what I mean?
That's kind of like where my decision making process kind of came to at the time, was because of the cold caller, or sorry, because of the dead caller in between. It really, in real time, that was my logic for making the call. I think heads up, like, you can have aces and kings as slow plays sometimes, but when you have that third caller in between, it just seems like a slam dunk four bet in his shoes with aces or kings.
Yeah. So Michael A says heads up. I think the hand is exactly the same. See, no, I disagree. I disagree. T Corruptus says I'm flatting as the villain here all the time with aces and kings if there is no MP or if MP is telegraphing a fold. That's another thing too. Sometimes you can catch in live poker is that once in a great while, if you're the villain, you can, make this play if you looking at the corner of your eye and you can see that the guy's going to fold out anyways. I don't know if there's any,
Yeah, like a
picking that
library
up.
type thing. Yeah.
But anyways, Josh, I appreciate the call. That's a tough one. Thank you very much.